Fy fan vad roligt det där var.
Vad det var kul.
Vi har pratat med Bret Easton Ellis om hans på svenska nyss utgivna nya roman Skärvorna.
Ja, och vi älskar ju båda den här boken.
Det gör vi verkligen.
Och det var ju ett väldigt bra snack om fiktion och sex. Och du fick prata med honom om...
Lindsay Lohan.
Lindsay Lohan.
Det var nästan det bästa.
Så varsågoda, en timme med Bret Easton Ellis.
Welcome, Bret.
Thank you for having me.
We're so happy that you're here.
Really?
I'm so excited.
Me
I've
too.
been reading you for such a long time. I'm such a big fan. And I had the best experience reading the charts this summer because I was going to Lisbon and I bought it on the airport. And I'm a really big Nancy Drew fan. When I was a kid, I read like every Nancy Drew, and especially during the summers.
Yes.
And this was like being Nancy Drew obsessed again, reading the charts. I didn't want to hang out with my friends on vacation. I went back to my room all the time because the suspense and like a new...
And you told me after, you were like, my friends wanted to party.
Yes, and I was like, no, I just want to go back to my room and read the charts.
Well, this is X-rated Nancy Drew.
I know,
So-
and even better.
So it's not really, because I love the Hardy Boys as well.
Yeah.
And this is kind of like the X-rated gay Hardy Boys as well as the X-rated Nancy Drew. I loved all those young adult novels
Yeah, me
when
too.
I was much younger too. And they were formative reading experiences.
Yeah,
And I'm
and
going to-
in Nancy Drew, there were always only like a kiss on the cheek.
Yeah.
So I wrote like soft porn,
read
Nancy Drew.
Fan fiction.
Exactly. But for those who hasn't been able to read it yet,
Yes.
what is the novel about?
Well, on the surface, it's a high school novel. It's about a group of friends who are at a very privileged prep school in Los Angeles in 1981. And it's a very tight group. The archetypes of the American high school. There's the king and queen of the prom, the quarterback, the most beautiful girl in school, their friends. There is also a new student who comes and kind of infiltrates these five best friends. And the narrator of the book is Bret, and he is beginning to believe that he's going to ruin this last year of school. This infiltrator, so good looking, so handsome. Bret's in love with him, even though he has a girlfriend.
A beautiful ass.
Yes, a beautiful ass. Well, there are a lot of beautiful asses in
For
this
sure.
book. Well, Bret is a 17-year-old boy, and he's noticing a lot about both sexes. I've been taken to task that the sex scenes in this book are a little more explicit than they should be. I think it's narrated by a 17-year-old boy. I think they're quite even toned down to a degree. Everyone complains about the level of masturbation that's in this book, but I mean, I cut half of it out because I mean, he's 17. What else were you doing at 17?
Oh.
Anyway, so what happens ultimately is that Bret, who is the narrator of the book, begins to suspect that this guy, this new kid, this gorgeous guy, is going to break up the group. He's going to.
Bret has this whole idea of
He's
the last
going
year.
to get through this
Yeah.
final year. He's not happy. He wants to escape high school. He's secretly gay, but he's going out with the most popular girl in school. And he just wants everything to work out, and he just knows that this guy is going to break it all up. He's going to steal the beautiful girl from the quarterback. He's going to reveal Bret's own obsessions. And during this time, there's also a serial killer in LA called the Trawler. Bret begins to notice a timeline between this new character and the Trawler, the serial killer,
Yeah.
and begins to connect them and begins to believe, actually, that this new student is the serial killer. And there is enough evidence to support that maybe he is. So that's really what the book is about. But it's this weird book. It's this high school drama, slasher, thriller, mystery, but also a historical recreation of Los Angeles in 1981. The movies, the music, the fashion, and my youth. You know, it just landed in my lap.
There's something about this book also compared to your other novels in my mind, and this is also something we talked about. It has this kind of golden glow. It has a softer light. It feels nostalgic in a different way. Also, and we talked a lot about the sex. We love the sex in the books, but the sex is also, it feels a bit softer or more, I wouldn't say romantic.
But it's more erotic, I
it's
think.
more erotic, it's more
Emotional.
Emotional.
Yeah.
It's connected
more
to him.
Yeah.
It's not always distant from, he's there more. Or what would you?
I'm older.
Yeah.
I'm just older now.
Yeah.
And I look back at my first book was published when I was 21, less than zero.
Yeah.
And that was the book of a 21-year-old writer. And I look at a book like, I don't know, American Psycho. That was the novel from someone who was in their middle 20s.
Yeah.
And I've always written novels with a narrator or a protagonist my age. The novels really reflect where I was at that point when I was writing them. And so, to me, they're very emotional things to write. They're not over-intellectualized. I'm really feeling the novel. I'm not planning it out. I'm feeling it. So why this time is there this golden light? Well, it really was, you know, it was 2020. We were in lockdown, COVID, pandemic. A terrible time, a terrible time. And I've been thinking that things have become so terrible in so many ways. We won't even get into it in terms of the world at large and how society is reacting to each other and the divisions that we have, especially in America. I was thinking about, wasn't 1981 great compared to 2021? And I think that was part of the impetus. Another reason why I wrote this book is that I really was beginning to forget a lot of things. And all the places that we hung out in 1981 were gone. The movie theaters, the nightclubs, the coffee shops, the restaurants, and no one curated them. No one took a million pictures that you could locate online. We didn't do that. So all of that was gone. I couldn't find some of my friends on social media because they're 57, 58. Many of them were just not on it. And this whole world began to evaporate, and I wanted to write about it.
Yeah,
and I think I wrote about it at this age, and I am softer in a way. I'm more emotional. And I'm looking back at my past in a way with, I don't know, lovingly.
A loving eye on the young Brett.
Yes.
One thing I really loved about the novel is that there's no parents there. Because that's also, like, I think the dream when you were, because I'm obsessed with, like, college movies, high school, TV shows, always been. And one of the biggest dreams about those shows are that the parents are not there, they're gone. And it's the same in the charts.
Risky Business,
yeah.
one of my favorites.
It's exactly.
Well, you know, I have to say, for my generation, the parents weren't exactly gone. It was just that they weren't hovering over you, watching your every move, and were so worried about you. I wouldn't call it parental inattention at all, and neither would my friends. It was just simply how our generation was raised. It was raised in a world of adults, by adults, for adults. It was an adult world we came of age in. We didn't have 100 Disney channels, and our parents asked us, "Oh, honey, what do you want? Do you want to do this? Do you want this?" Nothing like that. We were left to our own devices. I remember telling my mom, like I was 8 or something, I'm going down to see Richie and Randy down the street. She said, "Oh, fine, just be back by dinner time or whatever." Got on my bike, hopped around, and you know, we wanted to enter into the world of adults. We wanted to enter into the world of sex and making money, cocktail parties, the glamorous world that we couldn't access as children. So it's very hard for me to understand a generation where, you know, a 40-year-old man is dressed up as Thor at a Comic-Con convention. I just don't my generation just doesn't get that.
But yeah, because I think childhood wasn't that great. Like, you only wanted to become an adult.
Well, we wanted to become an adult, but also we had a freedom. We had this freedom where we could say and do whatever we wanted. I mean, not to the detriment of anybody, but, you know, we wanted to be offended. We wanted dirty jokes, and we wanted to experience taboo. The taboo was cool. Now it's not at all. It's shame, shame, shame if you go there. And I think that's part of what makes Gen X, my generation, slightly more conservative than the other generations, because we had so much freedom. And now we see it being just stripped away from us in terms of language, in terms of how you can express yourself as an artist. You can't do that if you are this color or this gender or this whatever. I mean, all of these notions about jokes, people getting canceled over a joke, having to apologize for jokes. To my generation, that's insanity. That is complete insanity.
Well, you were more or less canceled over American Psycho, though.
I was canceled in American Psycho. I got canceled in Hollywood for a book collection called White that I published in 2019.
Right.
So yeah, I've been canceled a couple of times, but I have to sleep at night.
Yeah.
I cannot be this inauthentic person and then censor my art just to make some people happy who are in power. I mean, it just doesn't work that way for me.
But do you think like all young people are seeking out taboo, or is it having to do with being a writer or being... Because I know when I started to read Nancy Drew, I wanted to read more. I loved like William S. Burroughs and Jack Kerouac because they were writing about drugs. And I was obsessed with drugs when I was like 12. I only dreamed about being drugged. That was like my big to-go-to party. And like,
we should have been friends.
That someone else would drug you.
Yes, because then I was like, oh my God, I was drugged.
You didn't want to take responsibility. You
because
just
I was
to
12, so I wasn't there yet in my thought process. And I read like novels meant to warn youth about drug use, but that was like my fantasy. But do you think that's a writer thing, or is it just a being young thing? Because I imagine when I read the charts, I could see myself in Bret in that way.
Well, I was looking back. One of the reasons why I wanted to write the charts, as I said, is that I wanted to capture a lot of things that really did happen to me. This book is a novel. It's a novel, but so much of it is autobiographical. And so I wanted to write about that. And I wanted to write about it as honestly as I possibly could. I tried writing this book at 18. I put aside Less Than Zero, and I wanted to write the shards because of all these terrible things that had happened to me my senior year in high school. And I wanted to write about these things. And I just didn't have the, how do you say here, the chops, the talent to do it. And I went back to Less Than Zero. The shards had too many characters.
You still had the notes? Did you still have notes that you could go back to?
I couldn't find them.
Okay.
I couldn't find them. But when the shards came back to me finally in April 2020, I'll never forget it, April 2020, a month into lockdown, the shards had been coming back to me, and then it finally said, write me. I'm ready to be written. But I couldn't find those outlines that I'd done. But I remember the story exactly. I remember it from the stables. The book opens a girl gets a new horse, and they have to go to the stables to see her new horse, all the way to the big climactic knife fight that takes place at the top floor of the Century Tower, which was my father's apartment, 2802. That's where my father lived. That's why I know that apartment so well, where the two characters get into a rather bloody knife fight. That was my father's apartment. But anyway, so I remembered it all, and in 2020, if you had asked me that Monday, in April of 2020, are you going to finally write the shards? This book after 40 years, I would have said no. But by Thursday, I wrote the first 2 paragraphs, and then Friday, I wrote 14 pages, and then boom. I've never written a novel as fast as this.
But I think there's something about looking back in the style, that is Bret looking back that you could not have done at 18.
Yes, exactly, because I was writing it in 1982 in the style of Less Than Zero. I was and it was clay. I had taken clay from Less Than Zero, and made him the narrator of the charts. And so he was sounding like clay. He was sounding like, I am driving to the stables right now. I am hungover from the cocaine I took last night. Blondie is playing on the stereo in my car. I see Debbie standing on the... That kind of like works in a 200-page novel, and it's kind of a vibe, a numb vibe. It was never going to work in this particular story. And an 18 and 17-year-old boy is not narrating the shards. A 56, 57-year-old man is, and he's able to do it in a way that the 18-year-old just wouldn't have been cognizant of, wouldn't have made sense.
So another thing maybe connected to that I was thinking a lot about when I was reading the book is that Bret, or the narrator, is also writing about a boy trying to write.
Yes.
So it's about the young Bret trying to work on his book, Less Than Zero, and at the same time trying to figure out what's happening around him, trying to put pieces together, these strange signs, symbols, trying to find an arc, like a narrative arc in his life. And it's
this mystery that is going on.
And this mystery. Yeah. So I was thinking, is it also, for me it's also a book, and we'll get back to the sex, but it's also a book about writing, about learning to write. And because it's so interesting that Bret is on a number of occasions trying to tell other people, you know, there's something awful, terrible happening here.
Yes.
But he can't find the words. He can't express himself.
Yes.
In a way that makes people understand what the fuck is going on.
Yes,
so
that is true.
What is
this novel came out of a time in my life when I really had settled on becoming a writer. 16, I started Less Than Zero. So my 17th year, my senior year in high school, I was really a writer with a capital W. I knew that's what I was going to be. I was working on Less Than Zero. And my writing life, though, kind of spilled into my real life. And it wasn't real. I had a girlfriend, but I was gay. I thought this boy I was seeing was really in love with me, but he wasn't at all. I thought a teacher was having a relationship with a girl student, and I made up this kind of gossip because I thought it was true. It got all over the place. I was a fabulist. I gossiped. I was, in many ways, a liar. I couldn't control my superpower, my writerly superpower, and I began to think people were things that they were not. And that really is what got me into a lot of trouble. And
real trouble.
What?
Real trouble. Or
real trouble in terms of losing friends.
Collapsing.
Losing friends. Yeah. And, you know, yes, getting into trouble by...
I mean, trouble in the real world, so to speak. So,
well, getting into trouble in a way in the real world was getting lost.
Yeah.
Hearing things that weren't there, seeing things that weren't there, which is what a writer does.
Exactly.
But 17 was the year that I couldn't control it. And that was then, after that, after all these things happened to me, I got it. I calmed down and I learned to control, you know, that my real life with my writer life and all that stuff.
Was there fear in that confusion or this collapse of the storytelling and reality? I mean, as you remember it, was that a dark feeling or was it exciting or?
Oh, it was dark. Yeah. It was very dark. 17 was the darkest year that I'd had experienced up until then in my life. There were a lot of things going on, and I also think The Shards is about that. I had a lot of straight male friends. I had a girlfriend, but I also knew I was gay, and I resented that. I only resented being gay. I only disliked being gay 1 year in my life. I learned very early on, I think 8, 9, I knew it. I knew that I was gay. It didn't matter. It wasn't my identity. I loved movies. I loved music. I was in bands. I was a voracious reader. I loved all of these other things. Being gay was just like, okay, yeah, well, I've got an alcoholic father. My parents are going to get divorced. Gay is just another thing in my life that I'm going to have to deal with. I didn't make it into a big drama. It didn't traumatize me. At 17, it did. Because I realized when I looked at my straight male friends, their options were so limitless. Mine were very limited. And I realized that, and I realized that I was going to have to deal with this throughout the rest of my life, that my world was going to be much smaller than theirs. And I resented it, and then I got over it, and I went to college, and everything was fine. But 17 was the loss of innocence. 17, which is what this book also refers to, that happened.
Yeah, but that's because that's also the feeling in the book. You're just waiting for like the big reveal, or waiting for the explosion, waiting for the collapse.
Or many reveals, or many explosions.
Reveals,
yes.
But I like that it's one thing I really liked about the shards is that it's the year Bret's not feeling comfortable about being gay, because my friend is obsessed with Luca Magnotta. Do you know him? The cat.
Of course I do.
And the guy who killed.
He was I influenced him.
Yes.
I unfortunately influenced him.
You did?
Yes.
Oh my God.
He was obsessed with Patrick Bateman.
That's the cat killer. Have you seen
Yes.
it? Oh my God, because he's a gay icon, I think.
Right.
Friends think.
I mean, a sicko. He's a sick guy. He's a murderer.
Yes.
But he had built this entire persona, and he loved American Psycho.
Yeah.
Tell the viewers who it is.
They made a film about him on Netflix, I think.
Netflix, yes.
Where he...
It was
what did he do?
documentary. It's a documentary.
It's a documentary. It starts with people finding his videos on YouTube where he kills cats.
Okay.
And people get so obsessed that this guy is killing cats.
And posting these videos on YouTube.
Right.
So they start trying to
figure out
who it is.
Okay.
And then it's this, he's a murderer, he's sick, it's very horrible. But my friends call him a gay icon. And they're also obsessed with the guy who killed Versace.
Andrew Cunanan.
Exactly.
Yes.
And my best friend said that he didn't like the show because he didn't want straight people to know how crazy gay people are. Because he's like...
This is something that the culture refuses to accept. Now, I'm not all gay people are everything. There are crazy straight people, but in the culture of mainstream television, everything, gays have to be perfect angels.
Yeah.
Gays have to be the magical elf, is what I call them. I wrote an essay about it in White called Gays as the Magical Elves, where they're always the good best friend, they're always this. And what I admire about Ryan Murphy's movie about Andrew Cunanan was that it really did depict a reality about gay life that people don't want to see. Liberal, progressive Hollywood wants to present gay people in a certain kind of light, and they don't want to present them in any way at all negative. Much the same way with races, with black people and with women in a lot of ways. But Ryan Murphy doesn't care about that, and so he made the Netflix series Dahmer, which also was a very realistic depiction of a kind of gay lifestyle. I know we're kind of getting off the topic here.
I'm going to pull it back to the shards.
And I'm not saying I'm a huge fan of Dahmer or Andrew Cunanan.
No, of course.
And I was also Andrew Cunanan's favorite writer. So I have to take, I'm connected to all of this
but I think
crap.
what my best friend is saying is that there's something about the split personality or the split subject or the split eye that he says for him is very connected to being gay.
Yeah,
that you have
I agree.
Do you have
performative here,
exactly,
performative
that
there.
You're one person in this room and you have your day life and you have your night life or whatever.
I would think it's less now, but definitely when I was growing up, it was.
And
you were putting on a performance.
Yeah, and I thought about it when I was reading the shards.
Yes.
But your friend, can I say just your friend is he's young though. He's not generation.
Youngish. No. He's my age. Exactly.
I'm also
35.
almost
yeah, but I think So he liked it because of that.
Of course. Yeah.
But when I read the shards, I thought about it, and that's what I thought was so exciting about your use of autofiction or the autobiographical.
Yeah. Autobiographical element of the shards.
Exactly, because I think It can be so tiresome reading auto fiction because there can be this obsession with doing like being fake, sincere, or fake evil, and being fake.
Humble bragging.
Being fake.
Humble bragging.
Humble bragging.
Yeah, but it's even worse when they're gonna like trying to do like where they're fake bad. That's even worse than being evil.
Yeah, no.
But I think you really play with the genre.
Yeah.
How did you like start to find? Because I know you do it a lot of in a lot of your novels.
You know, this book never started out as autofiction. The story was the story always. It didn't change since 1982. It is a mystery. It is a crime thriller. It is a slasher novel in many ways. I envisioned it when I was 18 as a horror novel, as an homage to Stephen King. But as the years went by, it became much more about me and how I was connected to certain people that I had feelings for, and also for a darkness that I felt was I was becoming enveloped in at 17. And so in that regards, I never really thought about it as autofiction, and I still don't. I just thought, okay, if I'm going to write this book as honestly as I am, and I'm going to become completely clean about how I felt about my girlfriend, this boy, my life in general. Why would I call him Jack? Why would I call him Benny or whatever? He's Bret. This was my life. Now, it was folded into, as a friend of mine said to me after he read it, he said, I had no idea you ever wanted to write Scream. You wanted to write a 600-page Scream. And I said, well, I didn't really think of it that way. I thought it was more of a character study about a group of friends who are breaking away from each other. And that's what happens. Adolescence ends. You become an adult. The only scene that wasn't in the book when I was writing at 18 takes place near the end, 20 years later, after all the horrible events of the climax takes place. And that to me was so typical of what happens to us in a way, in terms of these people we think we're so close to in high school, we have such intense relationships with. They dissolve. They go away.
Yeah, I was wondering about that because that's such a it's an interesting scene in the book. It's so different from the rest of the book, and but also after writing this book and the strong auto-fictional parts of it, and how honest you are, did old friends reach out to you? Did they get in touch? What's your experience after the book coming out with other people's memory of that time, if any?
Only one person. There's a character in the book named Debbie Schaefer, who was my girlfriend.
I love Debbie Schaefer.
She was my girlfriend. I didn't name her Debbie Schaefer.
She's fabulous.
That is a totally made-up name. I got a Facebook message. I'm never on Facebook. I said, why did this Facebook message go to my Gmail? I talked to my much younger boyfriend who knows all of this stuff. And he said, do I have to explain this to you? Okay, a Facebook message means you are friends with someone on Facebook. They sent you a message. You get it. I said, no,
Whatever.
I don't understand that. I don't. What are they going to do? So I said, just go in and find out who it is. Who is this person? Her first name, and I didn't recognize the last name. So he went in and he looked around and he said, you have 58,000 Facebook messages you haven't answered since you got Facebook in 2006 or whenever I first got it. You haven't answered any of them.
So many missed opportunities there.
And so it was her name, but a different last name, my girlfriend from high school.
Debbie.
It said, and the message was very simple. It said, I just read the shards. I have to say, if there's a name I hate more than Debbie, I don't know what it is. Why did you have to name me Debbie?
I thought it was
That was the only person. Yeah. I couldn't find anybody
And that
else.
was the message.
That was the message. And then we hadn't seen each other since high school, and we had dinner in January.
Really?
Yeah, we did.
And how was that?
It was pretty emotional for her. I really did not know the extent that her feelings for me, and we talked about it over dinner.
I understood when I was reading the novel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, so she's the only one, and then I found out about other people who had just simply disappeared from my life after high school, where they were. Matt Kellner, for example, who was a murder victim in this book. Various who had left Buckley by the time certain things had happened to him. And anyway, so, but no, not a lot of people. I don't know, do a lot of people read? I have a best friend.
No.
I have a best friend. I only have 2 friends from this prep school, and one of them said, Bret, I'm not going to read your 600-page novel about our prep school and what was there. I was there too. I don't have time.
And it's even
I have 3
guy.
kids.
That's
I have
funny.
3 kids. I can't do this.
I love that it's 600 pages because that felt like being a teen again.
Yeah.
Just because it's like very.
You go into it, and
It's
you
not
just stay, and you stay, and you stay.
Yeah, and it's not like zigzaggy. It's like the style of it, you know,
Yeah.
like trying to get close, and that's exactly what being a teenager is like. So I really.
Yes, it is, and it's also heightened.
Yeah.
It's also emotional, which is what being a teenager is like. Well, for me now, looking back, I even see Less Than Zero as a heightened novel about being a teenager, but with a very different tone, with a very kind of cool. I'm a cool teenager,
Yeah.
but it's still he cannot tamp down the emotion of all the drama that happens to him in that book. It's just told in a different way.
Yeah, I had a quote that I really loved in the charts. There were a lot of, and I've been rereading you now the last couple of weeks, and you're so funny. I just have to, like, there's a line in The Rules of Attraction. That was my introduction to your authorship. That's like, to fuck a girl and not make her come, says Sean Bateman, is like writing questions in a letter.
I totally forgot that. Oh my God.
I told it to my boyfriend, and it was like, "What do you mean? Why are you telling me this?"
Don't you get it?
I wrote that when I was very young. I wrote that was very young.
But it's so true.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I love
No,
that.
but the quote is from the charts, and I think when I read the novel, I really thought about all of your novels when I read what Bret thinks. The day really became effortless once you faked it, and it actually became more real because of your changed demeanor. The act became the reality, and it affected everything in what seemed like a positive way. In fact, it was preferable to reality.
It's also about writing.
That is about writing. Yes, that is about writing.
Yeah.
And that is also about a certain sort of performative thing that we all do, I think, in high school to a degree. We all play roles. Most of us do. I don't know if Tom Wright, the athlete, the quarterback, who's so popular and so privileged that I don't think he has to play a role. But I think other people do play certain roles, and there is a performative aspect to high school itself. You know, it's not like a real place in a way. We're all pushed together onto this stage, and we then have dramas with each other, and we fall in love with each other, and it becomes its own kind of movie in a way, which is why there is so many high school movies and so many TV shows about high school. It's a heightened reality.
Because I think my way into your authorship was actually through the high school TV show, because I was obsessed with Dawson's Creek. I think I've seen like the four first seasons of Dawson's Creek like maybe 20 times. I don't.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
And I saw that Dawson played in this movie, James Van Der Beek,
Yes.
Rules of Attraction.
Oh, yes.
And I was
yes.
blown away because this was like the merging of 2 words. Like, because Dawson, he's like this trad wife being in the show.
Completely.
And then he was playing in a Bret Easton Ellis movie.
Yeah. It
And
was
that
great.
blew my mind.
Oh, I'm friends with James after he starred in The Rules of Attraction, where he plays a bad boy, a
Yeah, I know.
really bad boy.
Patrick Bateman's
drug
little
dealer,
brother. Yeah.
womanizer, many sex scenes. He goes all out on this role, and I thought he was great in it. And he really was hungry to change that Dawson's Creek image. So he really wanted to do this movie, even when his advisors said, "We don't want you to do this movie."
They
But of course, as a young actor, you want to do a movie like this. You know, you don't want to be stuck as Dawson. So that's it. But yes.
So when I saw that movie, I read the novel, and I found Bret Easton Ellis, and I had never read novels like that before. And I think there's such a strong movie quality, of course, in a lot of your work. But sometimes I feel like you're this like super successful once in a generation writer, but you're like, I want to make a movie. What is that? You're so like, why are you, be grateful, like why are you?
Look, novels, I've written 7 or 8 novels. That's a lot to me. I don't know, novels.
But isn't the novel superior the movie, or do you think?
Oh, I don't know. It depends on the movie. It depends. There are a lot of very bad novels published.
True.
There are way too many novels published. Way too many. There are also way too many movies being made as well. There's a lot of bad movies. You know, a novel comes to me when it comes to me. I do not wake up on a Thursday saying, I owe my publisher a novel. I'm going to begin a novel about a talking raccoon, and then he turns out to be a murderer, whatever it's going to be. It doesn't work that way. A novel can take months, even a year to feel. And then it taps you on the shoulder and goes, I'm ready to be written. And then you sit down and you start to make notes, and it's this entire process. But I am not a career writer. I'm not. This is my first novel in 13 years. I am not a career writer. Writing's a hobby to me. I love it. I enjoy it. There is nothing better than when I have a book going and I can go to my office every morning, and I love the blank screen. I love it. I can now put all of my fantasies, everything that I'm dreaming of and obsessing over, feeling bad about, all of it can go onto this. I can start organizing it and processing the pain, processing the pain through writing. So I'm really happy when I have a novel, and I just didn't have one for a long time because I was in Hollywood. I spent 14 years in Hollywood chasing the TV show because I did believe that TV had gotten so good that was kind of the new novel, that there were shows so good that were better than some of the best novels that were
you love movies so much. I mean, you love the art form.
I do, and I do want to direct one, and I was going to direct one, but then COVID hit. And so then we got back to, we were about to make it, a movie that I wrote and was going to direct, and then in America we have this thing called the actors and writers strike. And so the strike that went on and on and on, and the actors strike is still going on. The writers strike was resolved, and so I can now rewrite and do stuff, but we need a cast.
So I want to ask you something else, because I have a different experience with you, and I'm kind of torn about asking you this.
Don't ask me.
I don't think as an author you should be so much maybe confronted with like how people experience your book. I mean, you do what you do, and then people read them however they want. But I started reading you as a young. Also, I guess it's a 17 or 18-year-old, and American Psycho was the first book that I read. And that was such a strange, dark experience for a young woman to read.
Yes, yes.
And then I was kind of pissed off with you. Yeah. And then I didn't read you for a while, and then I read you again. And now I have a very different experience with your writing as a mature woman, because I can read, I can see the humor, I can see the I don't know, the cultural commentary, all of these things, but it just hit me as a young girl, the violence, the sheer darkness around women. Yeah. But my question is, because there's so much darkness also in the shards, and how does that? And also, when I read it, I had to put it away for a bit because I got scared. And then I.
She's very easily scared.
I'm very easily scared.
Okay.
But how are you? Like, what happens when you step into the darkness? And these horror scenes and the violence and the ambiguity also. How is that for you to be in that place as a writer?
It is a long process writing a novel. The Shards is 40 years. I'm sorry, guys, it's 40 years. I thought of it in '82. It was published in 23, okay? So I've been thinking about this material for decades, And obviously I was thinking about this decade because I was scared. I grew up in Southern California of the 70s where 20 serial killers were roaming. Serial killers were everywhere.
It was such a big thing, and part of culture.
California was ground zero for serial killers. A very famous one just died last week. He was part of the, he was called the Sunset Killer. He killed about 6 women over there. Anyway, so that was a fabric of my childhood. A wallpaper, a soundscape in the background was serial killers. And it was a very frightening thing to, it was very frightening, but then it almost became abstract. There were so many of them. It was just part of the world. And of course, the Manson family, the Manson murders of Sharon Tate, that haunted my childhood as well. The idea of cults. And I think one of the worst things that can happen is cruelty to animals. And there's a lot of cruelty to animals in my book, and it upsets me a lot. And that's why I put it in there, because this person who's committing these acts is so cruel. What is worse than, of course, taking a human life, but the torturing and the cruelty to animals upsets me so much. So that's why that's also a part of the serial killer's narrative, what he likes to do, how he likes to fuck with people by stealing their pets and doing things to them. But anyway, so I have a long time to process the violence and the darkness and all the very scary things that happen in the shards. And then by the time I've done my outline and I'm writing it, I'm a technician. I'm a technician now, and I love being a technician. I love ordering everything out. I love making sure it's smooth and it's readable and everything. So when I'm writing those scenes of extreme violence or what some people call pornography, I just think they're sexy scenes. I don't think it's porno.
I love the sex.
But anyway, I'm glad you like the sexy scenes. Sometimes, look, a lot of sexy scenes are really badly written.
No, but
these are not.
They're really very sexy.
Yeah.
So, well, that's good because because I think it's hard to write a sexy scene because people are often so bad at it. But anyway, but so I'm ready. I've been ready for a long time. So I'm not like sitting there when I'm writing. There's a scene where Bret's alone in a house in Palm Springs, and there's someone with a flashlight going around. That's a very tense scene. Yeah. And but I've thought about it for so long that I know I'm just thinking about the movements of like, okay, so he's going to be in the bedroom, then he's moving in the living room, he sees a flashlight.
You're done
in the
processing the emotions and the fear or whatever.
Yeah, I've already had all that.
Yeah.
And now it's time to write the book, and that's fun. So that's fun. The fear I've already gone through. I've already experienced the dread and the scares, and I know who's going to die, and I know how they're going to die.
Do you know? I mean, there's a mystery in this book, and we said we wouldn't spoil it.
Yeah.
But do you know what happens?
I think there have been a lot of conversations on a lot of book clubs about the ending to this book. A lot. I think it is extremely clear. If you read this, clearly, it is there. All of the answers are there. Yeah. It makes perfect sense. Who did what to who did not do what to who, and there is this one unanswerable thing that will never be answered. And that bothers some people. And I think if you go into this book as a crime thriller, a murder mystery. No, but some people I think go into it and go, I've never been on Goodreads before. I went on Goodreads and I saw this thing called DNF. DNF. What's a DNF? Did not finish. And so I learned a new thing on Goodreads. But I think they went in seeing the cover and going, oh, this is going to be a fast-paced crime thriller. It's not. It's a very slow, burning story about friendship and being in high school and parties and all of these other things that are going on. But it is, I really don't know, if you haven't read it clearly, there is one big question at the end. Everything else is very easily put together. I loved reading the old Reddit threads because you first published the book in your podcast. I did. It's a sound story. I did. And there's like old threads on Reddit when they try to figure out if it's really true or not. I read those too. It's so lovely. Oh, and I saw the pictures of the people. They got my yearbook. Yes. They found my yearbook and they started to put people together who they thought were the real like, Ryan Vaughn and Debbie Schaefer and Susan Reynolds. sometimes they were right.
Oh my God! And they're like, they can't find the serial killer, the trawler.
Which was a few of them that I put together.
Yeah, but they're like, we can't find. But that doesn't mean he doesn't exist. You need to go to the library in this county, blah blah blah, and they're obsessed. But then, like that, I think hasn't that also to do with the format, that it's sound, because people are so used to the podcast, true crime stories,
kind of format,
and maybe they're not as used to listen to fictional.
Yes, that's true. That's
sounds
true.
more.
Yeah.
But I want to stay with the darkness. Just one more question.
Okay. Yeah.
And maybe it's banal, but I want to ask it anyway. What is the darkness for you? Is it human nature? Is it something we create, or is it what is it? What is it?
It's human nature, basically.
Okay, we can't get rid of it.
We can't really get rid of it.
It's not culture.
It's just part of nature, and we try to.
Because I'm a progressive social democrat, so I always think you can. Yeah.
Of course, and we just have to.
You do that. You are.
So I'm like, we can build.
Please, Bret.
No, I'm like, we can build a society where. No, I don't believe that. I'm not that stupid. But
no, I know, and I don't believe it either. But I just think it is just, look, I'm 59 years old, and I think I've seen a lot, and I think that it is just inherent in man. We've set up a society where we are much more bothered and offended by it, and we should be trying to give order to chaos. I agree. I agree. But it's just in us.
Yeah.
It's just in us. And some people, much worse than others. And social media doesn't help. Twitter doesn't help.
For sure not.
I'm just going to add that in.
Yeah. No, we agree on that. Totally.
But you talk about this empire in the novel.
Yeah. No, I wanted to ask about that as well. So you talk about these kids and how they're about to inherit the empire or empire.
The empire, yes.
And then I know you've been writing about empire, post-empire.
Post-empire, yes.
And what do you mean by that? And where are we now? Are we like post-empire?
Post-empire.
It's way past
Empire
post-empire.
was in when
because you're also nostalgic about what they're about to inherit. That's the feeling.
I'm just nostalgic about empire because it just seems like such a better time. Empire was when America was at its most prosperous post-World War II, and it was truly at the height of its empire. And it lasted for about 50 years or so until 9/11. This is my theory, guys. It's not anyone else's. And I write about it in my book, White, and I've written a couple of essays about it. Yeah. And then with the election of Obama, it really did change everything. 9/11, Obama. And we were entering into, and with social media being such a huge game changer in terms of culture, we had entered in something called post-empire, a kind of anything goes mentality where anyone could be famous for doing anything. Talent didn't matter at all. You could rack up 4 billion views of something.
No, you mean people could be famous for doing nothing. That's
becoming famous for doing nothing. Yeah. And in the empire, it was rooted in a kind of traditionalism, a classicism. Talent was rewarded in a way that it's a different kind of talent now. It's one that's very fleeting, that's not rooted in tradition. And also there was just this notion of, I guess it really just had a lot to do with talent and the way we expressed ourselves and the way that there was, I don't know, a kind of truth and an honesty in empire that now, well, a lot of it is fake accounts, a lot of it is fake news, a lot of it is like, so I don't know. So these are my vague thoughts about the empire and the post-empire. The post-empire I was writing about was, for example, the Charlie Sheen meltdown of 2010 or whenever that happened. And I couldn't believe how this was being covered, that this was the biggest star of the biggest television show in the world was having this completely honest meltdown in front of everybody. And he was showing that he was like a real person and he wasn't trying to hide it or anything. And that seemed to me a very post-empire moment. And I started noticing it with a lot of celebrities who had this kind of I just don't give a shit attitude. And then that got shut down very quickly. There was this fleeting moment where people were seemingly saying whatever they wanted to say, expressing themselves in very, very honest ways. I remember an interview that John Mayer gave in Playboy that was very sexually charged and racially charged as well. And people started to get into trouble. People started to get into trouble for tweets. In this post-Empire moment, it seemed that there was going to be this flowering of transparency. That did not happen, people. That did not happen. That idea of post-Empire was shut down almost as soon as it began, and now we find ourselves in a post-Empire world. I hope people understood what I'm talking about.
No, but it's really interesting.
It sounds so vague.
No, I know, I really like it. But I think one thing that I really love about the charts, and when I think about the nostalgia that you're asking about and that you're talking about, is that there's this like glaziness, or not numbness, that's like a word that reoccurs, but it's this glaziness, shininess that doesn't really exist anymore, I think, in culture in the same way.
But that's also looking back at youth. That's also looking
maybe,
back at,
but I think I'm really...
Everybody's nostalgic about their own...
Yeah, that's true.
Well, I think we're nostalgic about analog, the real, the tactile. There's nothing digital in the shards. And I think that's something that I miss about the Empire. So nice that he can
just not answer his phone.
Vinyl,
yeah, but
film.
also that Bret can just like turn off his answering machine, and he's not reachable. It's so nice for him that he can just Debbie, I'm not gonna see you.
Reachable.
I'm not gonna see you this weekend. I'm just gonna pretend I didn't hear you.
Yes, or you would have to drive somewhere to see someone rather than look on FaceTime or whatever. No, I think there was something about just the tactileness of opening books and opening up a record and looking at it. Anyway, so I do miss the tactile analog era, and that is fetishized in the shards, yes.
But I think that's also more glamorous. Because I'm really obsessed with like fame and fickle fame and ugly fame.
Yeah.
The bad fame and the fame for doing nothing.
Of course.
And because when I remembered like Glamorama, I was like, maybe it's that. But when I reread it, it's like more, it's just more glamorous. And like glamour doesn't exist that more.
Oh, I was watching on Apple TV a show called The Supermodels. It was about Cindy Crawford, Chrissy Turlington, Evangelista. Yes, and it was just such a reminder of glamour. Yeah. Real glamour, real beauty. Regal, just like...
but I think it has to do with the opaqueness, or like it's opaque in a way that doesn't exist anymore.
No, it doesn't, because everything is so close, it's so in your face. And we were talking the other day about how there are no paparazzis anymore, and everybody control their image of themselves because everybody can publish something about themselves. So everything is just up close and so much fragmented and in your face, and there's nobody controls the image of anything anymore. You can't build an image of anything.
Right. That's true.
It's also connected, of course, to technology then, and But we wanted to talk about the sex in the books, which actually maybe we did, but we both really liked and found it very kind of endearing and not soft exactly, but it feels different than in your other books, where it feels like the sex is much more, even more performative, or where I don't know, people are not really there.
Different person. I'm a different writer. I have a more tender feeling for those years when I did have those 3 lovers in high school. I have a very tender feeling for them now than I perhaps didn't when I wrote Less Than Zero, which is a very cold, numb book. The pornography, the sheer pornography in American Psycho is a reflection of Patrick Bateman, and not really a reflection of me. And so with this book, I knew that there was going to be a lot of sex scenes because I was going to be writing about myself at 17. And I really did look back at them and write them as honestly as possible. As Debbie Schaefer, I'm not going to say her real name, said to me, she said, I remember that afternoon when I came over and I got very mad at you because you just seemed like a checked out boyfriend. You seemed like a zombie. How did you remember all the dialogue in your bedroom? And I said, I wrote it down after you left. And she said, and I did, I kept journals like that. And she said, and you wrote about the sex that we had, and then that you lost direction, and then I went down on you, and all, I wrote about it exactly that way. But I wrote about it as an adult now, looking back and realizing that it was both integral to the story, integral to knowing more about the relationships, and the same with the sex scenes with, say, the men-on-men sex scenes. With I just really wanted to write about them from an emotional place and a real place. I didn't want to. I mean, I suppose to a degree, I kind of idealized them a little bit, but not much at all. And I always wanted to write. For 40 years, I wanted to write about the scene where the Bret Easton Ellis character thinks he's going to get a screenplay of his made, and he goes to the Beverly Hills Hotel to meet with an older producer. And the older producer is only interested in one thing and not the screenplay. And that happened to me. And that was something that I learned a lot about what it meant to be an adult, to have that happen to me, but I did not look at it as a trauma. You know what the real trauma was? Ryan Vaughn rejecting me. Football player rejecting me. That ruined my fucking life. Getting blown by an old producer because I thought he was going to get my screenplay made, that was
But you
nothing.
really want to get your screenplay made.
I really wanted to get my screenplay made.
That was the trauma. That it wasn't really interesting because
I didn't even have a screenplay
no,
done. I had a different story.
To believe you did.
Yes, I did. I wanted him to take me seriously as an adult, but I didn't do my homework. I didn't even have a screenplay.
When I was reading that scene, I was thinking so much about this is what it's like to be a woman in a man's, I don't know, maybe that's sounds wrong to you.
No, it doesn't.
Because there's always this split, like, what is the situation really? And you think you go into a place...
You negotiate.
No, you think you're like, I'm here because I have something to contribute, I have a talent, I have an idea.
But I mean,
then slowly...
Brett in the novel knew.
What?
I think there was...
Exactly, but that's also the case with, like, you know and you don't know, and you're also partly excited by it, but you also want to be, like... only respected for your ideas, but so it's like the split.
And you make a choice.
And you make a choice.
You make a choice.
And by
you go in,
there,
you not go in.
And you know, going there, you know.
Oh, I knew.
Yeah.
I knew. But I hoped.
I love that.
I knew, but I hoped. I hoped it would be something else. And it wasn't. It was whatever it was. It happened, and I had always wanted to write about it. I reference it in Less Than Zero. That's the other reason why I couldn't write The Shards then, because I couldn't be honest about it. I couldn't be honest about my homosexuality. I couldn't be honest about other boys, and I didn't want to write about my girlfriend and it not being real yet, because she is in Less Than Zero in the character of Blair. Debbie becomes Blair. I mean, I know this sounds a little complicated, but my world, I do have a meta world, more or less, where all the characters from all my books are connected.
You have a big meta world, and I also think there's like a meta world connected to your real world. I'm so obsessed with everything that went down around the movie The Canyon.
Oh, yes, the canyons, yes.
The canyons, exactly. Which was a script you wrote for a movie when Lindsay Lohan was trying to stage her comeback.
It was.
And James Dean wanted to move from pornography into the mainstream media. And only like what happened around the movie, it's like a part of your meta universe. I mean, it's amazing. It's like literature, but just you being in the world. Look, can you just talk a bit about that experience?
Wasn't the story I wanted to write about. I mean, I wanted to write that script for The Canyons, which was an erotic thriller starring Lindsay Lohan.
Love it.
And a porn star that I became really enamored with, a straight male porn star named James Dean, who still remains the #1 most popular straight male porn star in 220 territories around the world.
He's a big
go
deal.
to jamesdean.com. He owns all of his clips. He's making a lot of money. He doesn't perform anymore. But anyway, I became very taken with it.
He owns his own.
He owns it.
He owns his own IP.
Yes.
Because he started buying it in 2013,
Yeah,
2014. When people were wondering, why are you doing this? Yeah, you can have it for $300. Why would you want this clip? We'll take that money. So anyway, he did this very smart thing, collected them all, owns them all. And in order to get them, you have to go to jamesdean.com and pay $6.99 a month, whatever. So he's rich. Anyway, I was very taken with him. I thought he had changed porn because girls started watching straight porn because of him. He had a giant fan base because he didn't look like your average porn star. He's very cute. He looked like he could have been in NSYNC or the Backstreet Boys or whatever. I mean, he looked.
You're gonna get me started watching porn now.
Anyway, he was very cute. And so we made this movie. We made it for $250,000. Paul Schrader, who had written Taxi Driver and Raging Bull and directed American Gigolo. We had a couple of projects that fell apart, and we just said, let's just make our own movie. We'll make a low-budget movie set in L.A. We'll own it, and we'll make a lot of money off it. And Lindsay Lohan, who we offered a supporting character in it, wanted to play the star.
Of course.
So we let her play the star, and I actually think I just rewatched the movie about 2 months ago on its 10th anniversary, and I think it was really good. I thought it really holds up.
Too.
It was so attacked at the time it came out because it was Lindsay, it was me, it was James, it was Paul Schrader who had his own problems.
It was like a circle in hell.
But the movie came in on budget, on time, and everyone thinks no one made any money. We sold that movie for over $1 million to IFC. Everyone said, oh, you all lost money. Lindsay was paid $50 a day. Lindsay got $250,000 for 10 days of work.
That's perfect.
So she made money. We made money.
She needed the money.
She did need the money. Yeah. She did need the money.
And I bought it on Apple TV just the other day. So there you go. There's another dollar.
And I think she's really good in it.
Yes, she is.
Even though she had a couple scenes where she was drunk.
As you do. When you're a star in the meta universe to Bret Easton Ellis.
I was thinking your most important. Well, you know what? It works for the movie.
Yeah.
It works for the movie because she's unstable. And anyway, so anyway, I can't believe I'm here in Stockholm talking about the canyons.
You are.
Who would have thought that at 11 in the morning? But it happened.
We're so happy you came, Bret.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure.
And we love this book.
Yes, we really do.
We have talked so much about this book these last weeks.
And that's so amazing.
No, and there's still so much to talk about. We recommend our viewers to read it. It's called Skärvorna in Swedish.
Översättning av Johan Nilsson.
Översättning av Johan Nilsson. And we're so happy you came.
I'm so happy I came.
Yes,
thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.